hate this movie.
Hello, welcome back. Today we're here to talk about 2003's Hulk. Not to be confused with the Incredible Hulk, which we will talk about later, which is in the MCU. This one came before the MCU, and boy howdy was it terrible.
This is the worst movie I think I've ever seen in my life.
This movie makes the Incredible Hulk, which I'm not really a fan of, look like a masterpiece. So we'll just jump right into it. Plot and story. There was a plot, but it was buried beneath a lot of really stupid and pointless, fluff. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of it that just, the way they told the story, there was a lot of nothing happening.
I can't tell you what the plot to this movie is. I don't think there is one. He's convinced that there's one, but I don't know what it is.
There is one.
I mean, I know it's an origin story of Bruce Banner getting the Hulk, but is this a man versus army, a man versus self, a man versus machine, a man versus man,
yes.
Man versus nature? It's all of those things, and yet none of those things. It's so bad.
Yes. I mean, so basically Bruce Banner, after 40 minutes of a lot of really weird montages, eventually turns into the Hulk. And the rest of it is about the army trying to track him down. So, army wants to track him down, his girlfriend wants to cure him, and his dad wants to become him, ? I don't really know what his dad's motivation was, to be totally honest.
He was just there. He was just there, and he had no motivation to do... At the end of the movie... He has the ability to become one with things, and
randomly,
yeah, from where I don't know, why I don't care, and he could just so he could become one with things, and he became one with the lightning and the clouds.
Yeah, that whole blast
water
battle made no sense.
It was really confusing and it looked terrible. And then he was like, I want to become with the Hulk, but why? You can already do everything. You're arguably more powerful than the Hulk, although apparently only one of you can survive a nuclear blast.
Which was the Hulk.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Did the other guy become one with the missile? It's possible. I have no reason to believe that he didn't.
The last 20 minutes or however long that final battle was made no sense. He was fighting a bubble, it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 hours of his movie made no sense.
Which, yeah, the whole 2 hours. Yeah,
right,
anyway, what I will say, and this is the only reason I can kind of defend it. No, don't get me wrong, I did not like this plot and storyline. But there were some good ideas that got drowned to me. I think it might have been interesting to explore the whole Bruce Banner dad messing around scenario a bit further, because the dad was experimenting on himself, and that's why the DNA got passed on to his son, and then his dad wanted to that was an interesting dynamic. I wish they had just explored it more, because it just got drowned by a lot of nothing. There were just scenes where the Hulk would look at mold, or he'd look at rocks, or he would or he'd stand there and just watch Betty, or he would just do nothing. There's a lot of just 5 minutes montages of nothing happening. So the storytelling was really, really bad. I gave it a 1 out of 5, which was pity points, because I thought there were some good ideas that they just didn't really fully explore.
That's one more than I gave it. I gave it a 0. I didn't see a plot. And I didn't see a story. I barely saw the Hulk, and when I did see him, I hated it, because it looked terrible, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that later,
This was an awful movie, and if you've ever watched it, repent. And if you haven't watched it, good on you. Keep it up.
Keep up the good work.
Talbot, yeah? Where were the other drugs going?
We're going to talk about the acting and characters now, and I did not like the characters, but I'm going to give the actors a little bit of wiggle room, and I'll tell you why. I think that they were told to be as bland as possible.
They were so boring.
They were so bland, but they did it in a decent way. The line delivery wasn't terrible. The line delivery, I was I know what they're trying to say, but the script was just really
the script is
bad.
terrible.
People would never talk that way.
Yeah, here's my biggest thing with the acting. Eric Bana plays the Hulk. He has 2 expressions on his face the whole time. He's either blank or he's angry.
Or this one.
Yeah, he's either angry or he's blank, and he whispers every single line he says.
Yeah.
Betty Ross is played by Jennifer Connelly. She had no expression at all on her face. Her mouth was either hanging open slightly or it was closed, but that was the only expressions we ever got. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what her acting was. And then you got General Ross, played by Sam Elliott, who he was fine, but he just scowled the whole time, so that he had one expression. And then I don't even remember who played the dad, but he was by far the most expressive of them all, and therefore the funnest to watch. but his character was also just really weird and like out there.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just, I didn't enjoy any of their performances. Now, like Ben said, the script was bad. So it would be really hard to make some of those lines sound good. So I can give them some pity points for that. But they could have at least tried to have some facial expressions. You know, like it was just so boring to watch this acting in all other parts.
Characters, I'm going to separate acting and characters right now because I think that most of the characters in this movie were terrible. And his dad is probably my least favorite character in like cinematic history because his dad goes from somebody that is like relatively normal. You know, he's just trying to cure the human condition. That's his whole motivation. That's the whole reason that he's messing with gamma radiation in the first place. Because he wants to cure the human condition. And then he finds out that his wife is pregnant, and he's not particularly excited about that because he was experimenting on himself. You know, so he's like, you can understand him as a character. But then all of a sudden, he's crazy. Where did that come from? Why does he have an army of mutant dogs? Why is he trying to kill people? Why does he want the Hulk's power? There's like no motivation. It doesn't make any sense. Where did this guy come from? And then like he's like, here's the thing about General Ross. While I'm talking about characters, General Ross I could kind of get behind. He made some dumb decisions.
No, he did.
He's like, hey, we have the Hulk in a contained area. I'll defend this one actually. He was like, let's let him outside. You know, let's just see what happens. Let's
fight him outside.
See who he can kill. But I'll tell you why I think that's okay. Because he didn't know how far the Hulk could jump, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, the Hulk jumped like 30 miles or something. Like I think at one point he jumps like 60 miles. Like, there's no... He didn't know that was going to happen. They were in the middle of the desert. I'll give him that. But like, also he's like, I'm going to let the Hulk's dad just like go talk to the Hulk, right?
Oh,
or
yeah,
Bruce Banner in the last couple, like 15 minutes. And he's like...
The dad's making some pretty obviously threatening remarks.
He's like jumping upside down, trying to get his son riled up so he can turn into the Hulk. Why do you not say, "All right, visit time's over"? You know,
right?
Because Bruce Banner up to that point was like when he was Bruce Banner he was being like relatively, he was working with the government. You know,
yeah.
Like he wasn't running away. He was sitting in the chair like he was supposed to, right? And so it was just a weird character. And I didn't understand the motivation, like Betty Ross and Bruce Banner, their relationship was just nothing. And what happened to Bruce Banner's best friend? He was there in the very beginning.
He definitely, yeah.
They were bantering, and then he just disappears for the rest of the movie.
Well, so Bruce saved him when he absorbed the gamma radiation that turned him into the Hulk, but like he never shows up again.
Why? Where was
he? Got injured? I don't know. The explosion maybe injured him. I think they said he was in the hospital or something. I don't remember. But no, yeah, he never shows up again. Yeah, honestly,
the character development was terrible.
It was really bad.
That said, I still gave it a 2.
Why did you?
I did. I gave it a 2, and I'll tell you why. I gave it a 2 because I think that the actors did the best with their script. I think they did the best that they could or that they knew how. I can agree that there was a lot of blank slates, especially in the main actors, but I feel like they were just told how to act. They were like, hey, be broody. And he was like, oh, all right, I'll be broody. What does that mean?
They had no expression on your face at all.
Yeah, and they were like, hey, disattach your emotions from what you're supposed to be. And she was like... I mean, I just feel like they went with what they had. So I gave it a 2 because I want to give the actors the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I definitely gave it a 1 because they were just really painfully boring to watch.
Amen.
But yep, it was terrible.
I'll go. You just watch me go. Hit it.
Action was basically non-existent. There was 2 fight scenes, well 3 if you count the weird Hulk versus Bubble scene, which I don't because I don't know what was happening during that.
I will not count that.
But there were two scenes. There was one where Hulk goes to fight some hulked out dogs, which that was not fun to watch. And then there was the Hulk fight versus the military. That was a more entertaining scene, but it dragged on way too long. You get to see him like chuck tanks around, which was kind of cool, and he takes down the helicopter. Although, you know, like no damage was done to anybody during that.
Well, otherwise
scene,
the Hulk would be a bad guy, don't you know?
Well, Hulk is kind of a bad guy, see?
But listen, they didn't want him to be for this movie, I guess. I don't know.
Whatever.
Listen, here's the thing about the acting.
Action.
They were both bad, but the action specifically, there was no stakes. You knew the Hulk wasn't going to kill anybody, and you know nobody was going to kill the Hulk, so you didn't feel emotionally invested in any of this. He punches a French poodle, which is cool. I mean, that's something we've all wanted to do at one point or another. But, like, that scene was all in the dark. You can't see anything. And then there's a scene where they, like, cover him in containment foam, which was a stupid idea, but also the thing that worked the best.
It's true.
And then they never did it again.
Right, yeah.
Like, okay, so they're shooting this dude, and nothing's working, and they're like, well, maybe we'll spray him with spray cheese or whatever that was supposed to be. And then he's, like, stuck in it, and then they're like, what if we poke him in the eye? Then what will happen? And then he grows out of it, I guess. But then they never try that again, and they go back to shooting, which does absolutely jack squat.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Army versus Hulk scenes, which is part of the problem I'm going to have with the next Hulk, is because that's all the action is, basically. And it's because you know it's not going to work. They're blasting the heck out of him with guns and helicopters and all these things, and nothing affects him. And it's not going to affect him, and the audience knows it's not going to affect him. So you're watching these really long, drawn-out scenes where nothing is happening, essentially.
Here's what you do in the Hulk movie. If you're going to have an Army versus Hulk scene, the collateral damage is the stakes. Because he's not going to kill the whole army, and they're not going to kill him. So throw some civilians in him. You know? Have Betty Ross get smashed by his big toe or something. Then all of a sudden he goes back to Bruce Banner, and they're like, hey, mother hecker, you just stepped on your girlfriend's head. Now she's dead, dude. And then all of a sudden, now you have a broody guy. Yeah. And it makes sense. Now he's sad. Now he doesn't want to be the Hulk anymore, you know? Give him some motivation. And I just feel like, I feel like the action in the movie was really bad. I gave it a 0.5 because, I mean, the Hulk was there, and he did punch a French poodle.
And a really fat... Was it a bulldog?
No, I think that was supposed to be either a pit bull or a Rottweiler, but my man's cheeks came out to here. He looked like he was storing nuts for the winter.
Honestly, he did.
Yeah, my man, he looked like he was holding his breath for the last 10 years.
He was really bad.
Yeah.
We'll get cinematics next. But for action, I also gave it a 0.5. It was basically non-existent, and the action that was there either made no sense or just dragged on too long.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. The cinematics in this movie are awful. I have seen people, after I watched this movie, I went and watched other reviews, and I've seen people try to defend the comic book thing, because they were like, it was really cool that they tried. It was not cool that they tried, alright? You can bring a comic book to life, but like the reason that I'm watching a movie and not reading a comic book is because I want to see a different art form. When your art form is relying on another art form, it just didn't work well in this movie at all.
No.
I kept making the joke with Eric. I was like, I like to know what my next scene is going to be while I'm still in the last scene. So that's why this is great, because you'd have like the screen will just split in half. And then on this side of the screen, you'd have what's going to happen. And then on this side of the screen, you'd have what's happening currently. And I guess like that's what you would get in a comic book, but I didn't like it one bit.
Well, sometimes they split into 4. Like, there were some shots that were like, there were 4 screens going on at once.
Absolutely. Also, sometimes, like, mid-sentence, they would just, like, switch the camera.
Yeah.
For some reason. Like, you'd be seeing somebody from one side, and then the camera would switch, and then you'd see it from another angle. And it was really weird, because one time, the guy, like, leans forward, and then mid-sentence, he would lean back down the other direction. It was just bad camera work. Bad camera work.
Yeah, I knew
camera work.
Yeah, I knew I was in trouble because in the first 15 minutes where there was like Ben said, like the double screen going on or even the quadruple screen going on.
Super weird transitions.
It's super weird transitions. But the other thing is like there was one scene I remember, like it was like when she was giving birth or something. There was like they were in the kitchen still, and then there was just a circle right in the middle of her, and it was upside down. And then it grew, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" And that's how I audibly several times during the movie is like, "What the crap was that?" When they would transition from one scene to another.
What were they thinking?
I was so distracted by the cinematics of this movie, by the transitions, the camera shots, and like the weird just double shots going on at once. So like you could see the back of her head and the front of her head at the same time because of the screenshots that they were doing. That was so distracting to me that for the first 30 minutes, I got completely taken out of the movie. Like I couldn't even focus on what was happening. And that was a big part of what ruined this for me is like I couldn't focus on the movie. It kind of gave me a little bit of a headache with what they were doing. And so this is like really surprising to me because I didn't think I would ever give cinematics this low of a score, but I gave it a 0. Because normally I give it at least 0.5 for them making a movie. But the fact that their cinematics were so distracting that the rest of the movie tanked for me, like it's negative points. Like the cinematics, I gave it a 0, but it should really be negative for how bad they were.
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple more scenes that I wanted to bring up. Well, there's a couple more points. One is that the director of this movie thought that his audience was negative 20 IQ. He thought that they were just the dumbest people on the... He was like, if there is a single frame where there's no green in it, they're going to forget it's a Hulk movie. So we need to make sure that there's green in every frame of this movie. And I was looking at it. There's all like green carpets, green walls, green eyes. There's always green. Every single moment. There's one scene with the camera. We talked about the bad camera work. There's one scene where I was like, who allowed this to happen? It's General Ross. He's watching a video. You see it from 3 different angles. The video is the same, but his reactions are different. From 3 different angles. So they just shot this thing 3 times, and they were like, which one should we use? I don't know, all of them, And it was just like, it was so bad. It was so bad and distracting, and I hated every single minute of it. And then I made another note right here. This movie feels like somebody who has never seen a movie about the Hulk trying to describe a movie about the Hulk.
Yeah.
That he's never seen.
Yeah.
That's what the whole movie feels like.
Yeah.
And it also feels like somebody was just like, what if we put all of the scenes at the same time and we just zoomed in on the one that we wanted?
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was. Yeah, no, that's another point I wanted to bring up for earlier is the way that they told the story. They would literally just like do a montage and then they'd be like, oh, this scene is important, and they focus in on it for 5 minutes, and then they'd montage, oh, this scene's important, focus on it for 5 minutes, and then montage again. Like, it was very much like a watered down summary of a different movie. And yeah, it was just really bad.
One last thing I wanted to say. The Hulk looked awful.
Oh yeah.
He looked like he was made out of clay that was CGI. And sometimes like there are scenes where like he looks like there's the scene where he's like he was trying to poke the needle into his eye or something, I don't remember. He's in the foam and his face is like dysmorph. It's like it looks like it's just like bubbling. Why? Who animated that? And then who was just like, that's good? Are you telling me he presented this scene? I'll throw it up on the screen with the Hulk's face bubbling or moving around, and then the director is like, that one. That's good. Don't try again. This is the one we want. I just can't imagine. Like, one of his eyes is bigger than the other one. How? How?
I don't know. Terrible.
I gave it a 0.
0. Cinematics.
Listen, they presented a movie which is worth 1, but then they presented this movie which is -1. So they got a 0.
On an entertainment scale, needless to say, I wasn't entertained at all. I was
guess.
I was very bored during most of this movie. I gave it a 0.5, and I guess it's just because I didn't turn it off, and I was like, I'm willing to sit through this once. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I gave it a 0.5. I was not entertained by this movie at all. It's a very, very boring movie and very hard to watch, just because of the boring acting, and also the cinematics are very hard to sit through.
I would have rather watched the guy in Batman Forever scream, "It's boiling acid!" 100 times. On repeat for the length of this movie. I would rather watch that than this movie. There were many occasions where I was actually physically screaming at the screen to just end the movie. To just be over it. To just cut your losses and end it in mid-sentence if they had to, Just, he's like, I'm of the whole credits, That's what I wanted. And I didn't get it, and I hated it, and I gave it a 0. I was less than entertained. On so many occasions, I was like, well, can we just watch Batman and Robin?
Honestly.
Superman: A Quest for Peace? Can we just watch the first half of Superman? I just want to watch the guy who's supposed to grow up to be Billy Joel. I want him to just yell at his dad, come on, Dad, come on, let's go, come on, Dad. I want to watch that because that is 1,010 times better than this right here. This movie was absolutely terrible, and I hated it so very much, and it almost made me want to just delete our YouTube channel. I was that close to deleting our YouTube channel so I didn't have to watch this.
I gave it If you add all my scores together and average it out, it got a 0.6, a 0.6 out of 5. This is not a movie anyone should ever watch, ever.
I gave it a 0.5 because it can't. I mean, I couldn't give it a 0 because the actors did their best. I think
it's an existent movie.
Yeah, the movie was made, so it gets a 0.5, but it doesn't get any points past that.
No,
I do not anticipate having a movie lower than this one.
I would
we'll
be
see.
surprised. I didn't think we'd get lower than Batman and Robin, though, to be fair. So this one broke that
that's
record.
fair.
So we'll see. But anyway, average our scores together, 0.55 out of 5. Don't waste your time.
Please don't
it's
watch
2
it.
hours of your time that you'll never get back. And
Please don't
it's,
watch
it's
this
not
movie.
worth it.
You'll only regret it.
Only regrets. Only regrets. Anyway, our next movie will be much higher ranking, we're sure. It'll be 2004's Spider-Man 2, which, from our memory, is much better than a lot of the movies we've watched so far. So, tune in next week, 2004 Spider-Man 2. See you later.
Bye.